You could suffocate on the truth of the lies that you let haunt you. If you don't fight back, then what's the use? The world does not want you to think with your own mind and build your own life. They want you to waste your time, like breaking your back for pennies and dimes. But you know that you want something better, something better. You can't live this way forever. You need something better. You want something better. You need something better. It can stay this way forever. We need something better.
This is Disclosure Now with Arkeem Ra, a show where we expose the truths that are nefariously hidden from humanity. Today we are examining the QAnon movement that took a hold of the truther and conspiracy communities starting in 2017. We examine what parts of the Q phenomenon were based in reality and what parts weren't, and ask the pertinent question: who is Q?
Hey everyone, sorry that Penny's not with us for the technical difficulties. I am not sure what's going on with Penny. Last time she had some technical difficulties with her internet. I know that she's kind of out in the sticks and her internet can give her some flack a lot of the times. So I'm assuming that's what's going on because she emailed me at like 1:14, which was not that long. That was not even an hour ago, and told me that she was pretty much ready to go. So I don't know what's going on, but we'll figure it out. But anyway, we're going to start the show without her because this is an important one and we don't want to have to like reschedule it. We really want to get to it. And she'll probably join us in like 10 minutes or something like that anyway. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
But this is how I want to start this. Imagine it's the 1960s. All right. You're a young man, about 18 years old, 19 years old. Your country has sent you off to fight a war in the jungle to basically fight communism. Here she is.
There she is.
Hey, Penny, how are you doing?
Hey, it's Penny. It's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you guys too. Sorry I was late.
No, it's okay.
Last minute trip to the bathroom.
You're basically here just in time because we had a little waiting room, and we're gonna set the stage for the show in kind of an interesting way. I thought of it last minute. I'm gonna show a video. But basically, so I'm just going to do this little monologue, but I want to introduce you first, because obviously you're here now. This is Penny Bradley, everyone. I'm sure you know who she is. She is my biological mother from the MK Ultra programs, and she also is well known for being a whistleblower, really well known for her work talking about Nachtwaffen and life on Mars, and you know, she maybe doesn't need introduction, but I know every once in a while I have new people, so I like to kind of give an introduction. She has her own show, Nachtwaffen Pilot. There are some older episodes on here, but the censorship kind of became what's the point. So she's on Odyssey and Rumble now. You can find her there. It's, same name, Nachtwaffen Pilot. And anyway, welcome, Penny. Thank you for being here to talk about Q with us, because this is an important subject, and I feel like we're pretty on the same page with it. And I want to paint a picture here because I'm sure you remember you were there for it, the Vietnam War. So imagine you're a young man, you're around 18 years old, you're basically sent off to the hot jungle to die in this war, and you hear this playing. All right, you hear this be playing over loudspeakers. What, like, just this is what changed the entire landscape of warfare. Is really this sound clip right here that you guys are about to hear. It really did change the way our military looked at warfare.
Чего ты там пиздишь, чего?
GI, your government has abandoned you. They have ordered you to die. GI, do not trust them.
Tokyo Rose.
Defect, GI. It is a very good idea to leave a sinking ship. They lie to you, GI. You know you cannot win this war. Your rich leaders grow richer while you die in the swamp, GI. They will give you a...
Imagine literally seeing your buddies get blown apart by grenades for a war that you don't understand at all. You just got out of high school and you're hearing this stuff out there. Like, you're out there with your buddies, like around a fire, like hiding in the woods, or maybe you don't have a fire, but you know what I mean? And you're hearing this stuff. It had to have been degrading.
A medal, GI, but only after you are dead. Your government lies to you every day, poor soldier. You have lost this war, GI. Your army will leave you behind. Imperialists make you fight this war, GI. They do not care about you. GI, your government has betrayed you. You will not return for you. GI, your airplanes bomb your own men. You are not safe here. The skies are dangerous, GI. They will napalm you tonight. Your pilots do not care that you are down here, GI. Okay. You cannot dig foxhole to hide in, GI Joe. Your bombers will find you. GI, your helicopters fall from the sky like broken birds. They cannot see from your airplanes, GI. They come to bomb you.
That's fucking powerful. Like,
Yeah,
Like,
especially since
serious.
our planes were spraying them with Agent Orange.
Yeah.
And they came home with, okay, the primary ingredient in Agent Orange was dioxin, the most deadly element we have on this planet. And they came home with DNA damage, and their children are damaged, and their grandchildren are still damaged. And
they're being born with birth defects. It's generational.
the records for that were at the they were at the federal building in Oklahoma City that was blown up. And that was another federal black op that did that. The people who took the blame were patsies. We have not had a true attack on our soil since the War of 1812.
There's a lot of infighting within our government, and
that was a matter of, if those records were released, they were going to be responsible for billions of dollars of medical care for the GIs that they sprayed with Agent Orange. Now, Agent Orange is still a problem in Southeast Asia. That stuff doesn't go away. It's in the water supply now. There are still barrels of it in the bottom of lakes. Their people are still dealing with this on a daily basis. War is not just about our side. We lost 50,000 men. They lost several million. And the memorial wall only talks about our 50,000. It never mentions anyone on their side. Anyone. Not even the ones that were Vietnamese that worked with us. These are just the 50,000 Americans. And out of the ones who came home, almost every one of them was sprayed with Agent Orange.
And I know that the audience might be wondering, like, what this has to do with Q Anon. Like, this might seem kind of left field, but the reason why I started the video with that clip, that haunting clip, was that was the beginning of war, of psychological warfare.
Oh no, psychological warfare was earlier than that.
Obviously, but that was the beginning of it being blatantly used out in the open. I should say, where we have a record of it, and there's record of how our government responded to it, and how that changed the way they should approach situations militarily. And it's what basically spawned Michael Aquino, because he talks about it in his book.
Yeah,
that's one of the first things he actually talks about. It's like literally within the first few paragraphs, they bring up they bring up the Vietnam War and how we lost that because we didn't have a hold of psychological operations well enough, basically, is what he says.
Well, that's not the only thing that went on there. They had those guys so hyped up with drugs that half the time they didn't know what was real and what wasn't, and they were on riverboats going down the river, and they would find a base and they would just kill everybody there, and they would think they were killing the enemy because they were so hyped up on drugs, and it would turn out they'd been killing their own people. There was a lot of that. There were, if you look at the movies like Apocalypse Now, that was real.
What movie is that?
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, what happens? Just keep, I don't think
the storyline is that a commanding officer of a base went rogue, decided to make his own kingdom out in the middle of nowhere, and he was going through and killing Americans. And so they sent in a DOD crew to take him out.
Oh, wow.
And I know at least one of the people that was on the DOD crew. So that's still semi-classified. So there are a lot of things from that war that are still classified.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all over the area. It was not limited to Vietnam. It was illegal to be outside of Vietnam and committing war acts.
I also can testify to the fact that there were some very, very messed up like things happening there with deep underground military bases being made, or deeper underground facilities, I guess would be a better way to say it, that were literally just for snuff films and for ritual abuse and stuff like that. And we're talking about stuff where, like, I've been a victim of this. I remember a whole lifetime there. Actually, I was a part of it in two ways. During the Montauk Project, I was there with John Lennon, who I believe his name was like Robert Zimmerman or something like that. Or not, I can't remember what his name was, but obviously his name wasn't John Lennon, this version of him that I knew. But we were in the jungle building a deep underground military base as part of stuff that these satanic people that had their hands in Project Phoenix 2. And surprisingly enough, one of the people that's behind the Q operation is actually connected to that. What's the guy's name? Ron Watkins.
Yeah.
He's known as they're behind 8chan, which is behind a lot of what Q was doing.
Yeah, and his father Jim served in the military, the U.S. Army, for almost 20 years.
Yeah, and
I found documents that I shared with you, the links to them, that Q was actually a NSA unit, and they were initially assigned to catch Ed Snowden, and they were reassigned to redirect the truther movement, because the truthers were the only part of American society that were capable of pointing out the truth that was being hidden by everybody. And so they were redirected to follow Q. And
it was a hopeful time for a lot of those people,
I was part of the truther movement. Okay. I was one of those people who did not believe the official story about 9/11, and that was what introduced the truther movement to the public, was that the 9/11 narrative was so off track that it could not possibly be true, and so we were being fooled. And I'm one of those people that did the research, did the documentation, proved that it was an inside job done primarily by the Bush administration. This was a self-inflicted wound to justify their Middle East carnage. At the same time, you're going through and you're seeing a new wave of bullshit. And they were very clumsy about how they did their false flags. You were seeing people shooting up places, and you would see their eyes, and they had the MK Ultra 1,000-yard stare every single time, and they would say,
the big one that I remember is the guy with the red hair in Colorado.
Yeah, he
dad
sat there and said,
Lockheed Martin connections or something like that, and like
he said he didn't do it because his alter didn't do it. He had altered out, and this is why the community
this is why we're public.
This is why
we don't
we're
ever want
public.
to be used in this way. You know, it's bad enough they use me in the programs, but God forbid they would ever try to use me for something in the here and now. And that's why people like us, it's a big part of the reason why we go public. It's because we want to prevent that.
I went public because they were trying to kill me. I got shot with energy weapons 3 times in 6 weeks, and it takes 6 weeks to heal from each of them. So I was in pretty bad shape when I went public. It was go public or die. So I have tried to talk about how the Truther Movement information feeds into the entire narrative of all of this crap they're doing behind the scenes. But when I first saw Q, I had friends who fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. They were just absolutely thrilled that they were finally getting an insider to tell them the truth.
There was a moment, very brief, when it was happening, like literally probably 2020, where it was like literally 2 days where I was like, this is real. And then I was looking into it more and I was like,
I had to follow the crumbs just to know what my friends were talking about. Okay, so I did probably 6 months of following the crumbs to know what they were talking about. And when Q came up with trust the plan, I knew it was in trouble. I knew it was a major problem, that they had become a cult. Anybody that tells you trust the plan instead of doing your own work.
Yep, don't think for yourself. That's it.
That's a cult.
Yeah.
And also, whenever I went through following their crumbs, I found that 98% of it was slander with no proof.
Yeah, and you know, the thing that I really don't like about Q, and it was one of the things that kind of gave it away to me when I did very briefly, it was like, oh, this could be real, was the way they painted it like the Democrats are all part of the cult, like the ancient Canaanite religions, the religions that had to go underground that still exist.
The truth is the leaders of both parties are part of that.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem that I have with it, is it really sweeps the fact, like, look, like we got Larry King, who was a prominent, not the talk show host guy, the prominent politician that was involved with Boys Town in Nebraska. Yeah. He was a Republican, and that's like some of that was a very disgusting operation that he had running out of there.
I want you to be careful.
Well, he didn't get in trouble for it. He basically got away from it, but we all know what happened.
Be careful about talking about that, because according to the courts, all of that was slander, and the people who testified in court all went to prison for perjury. So we know the truth, but if you talk about it, you're subjected to that, because the courts found them innocent. And that's one of the things that the QAnon people have never understood, is the courts are the final arbiter of what is the official narrative. They decide who's innocent and who isn't. And if they decide you're innocent, then you have to deal. The public has to deal with. They can't bring up those charges again. Now, I know this is a difficult concept that someone can be objectively guilty as sin, and yet the courts have declared them innocent, so you can't talk about it. But this is a concept that went right over their heads. And so they were taking all this slander with no evidence at all and running with it. And so you've got probably 10,000 individuals worldwide who have been slandered by Q. Now, out of those 10,000 individuals, probably half of them are guilty. But we'll never know because of the slander campaigns. And that's the God honest truth. And I kept trying to tell these people that the courts arbitrate what is the official narrative by what they decide. And they kept telling me, they accused me of being a pedophile protector because I wanted them to have documentation. I wanted them to have facts. I wanted them to wait until the courts decided, because you can't run with slander. There are reasons it's against the law. You accuse somebody of something and they have no way of defending themselves from that. You know, how many of us are how you and I have been accused of all kinds of shit. How about if that went public with the Q program and
then millions of people see it and think it's real.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I kept saying, put on the brakes here, put on the brakes here. You don't know if this stuff is true or not.
It's just this phenomenon that we've seen multiple times, and we've really talked about it, is the fact that, sorry, I just...
Yeah, you blanked. I saw the eyes.
I altered out for a second. Let's close this.
But yeah, this, to me, it was really, really obvious that Q was a psyop of some kind.
We basically followed the breadcrumbs and did all the research and found the actual people behind the Q operation, and more or less it's Paul E. Valle, the guy that wrote the book with.
It's very complicated. There's a
lot of cogs in the machine, but basically, it's the guys who run 8chan.
His father and son.
Yeah, working with Paul E. Valle and like his people. And
are you looking at links?
Yeah.
What's that?
Can you screen share?
And I do have a bunch of leaks here. I actually have a website where I'm at the first leak they ever did, which was which this is a website that documented them, so I don't know if the dates are completely accurate, but it was uploaded to this website. Here, let me see if I can share my screen. It says Hillary Clinton will be arrested 7:45 a.m. on Monday, the October 30th, 2017, which obviously never happened.
Yeah, Cicada 3301, that is a part of this. Cicada 3301 was a ARG, and if you don't know what an ARG
I don't.
It's an alternate reality game. It's basically where people, like, they set up websites and YouTube channels, and basically you have to, the goal of Cicada 3301 was, they said, this mysterious website went up with a picture of a cicada on it, and they're like, we're looking for the best and the brightest intelligent people, and there were like a series of, I believe, 3 puzzles, and I believe that the 3rd puzzle has never been solved, but it was basically an alternate reality game that was the premise of it was that this secretive group was looking for these intelligent people to recruit for some mysterious thing. And
that sounds like one of the premises for the 3 Body Problem movie.
I've been meaning to watch that. That's a series I've been meaning to get into for a
You
while.
need to watch that one.
Yeah, but there are connections to Cicada 3301 and QAnon. Basically, what we learned is that one of the earliest QAnon influencers is this woman named Tracy Beans. She was in direct
I
communication.
remember that name.
Yeah, with the guy who started Cicada 3301 and asking him all these sort of questions about how did you do this, so on and so forth. So there's definite connections there between the two.
I had really good friends that I had accomplished great things with go absolutely insane following Q. And they have broke contact with me. Others kept trying to convert me like it was a religion.
Yep. It's like that doomsday cult mindset. It's like the goalposts are constantly moving. Oh, the Messiah doesn't come on this date. Well, it's because of da 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 da. So stay in our cult, and he's going to come on this date. And the goalposts are just constantly moving.
And the sad thing about it is not to interrupt you, but I remember one of the things I was kind of trying to say is what it really did is there's this argument from people within our circle of friends and stuff like that, truthers and stuff like that. We're like, well, even if there's some misinformation or whatever, it woke people up and it got people to see the truth. And to me, my opinion of it is no, not really, because the average people out there hear all these wild claims with no evidence behind them, and they don't want to look at it as serious. And the sad thing is some of the things that Q talks about is real, and it is some big stuff. For when you say it out loud, people are like, "Come on, blood, magic, sacrifices, and all this weird stuff," right? But the reality is, there is some truth behind some of the Q phenomenon.
Some of the people they accused were innocent. So whenever the police went and looked, there was no evidence. So that discredited all of their information.
This is a lot of what really happened with the whole thing. And, even for me at the time, like I said, when I looked into it, for me, finding that flavor, that sort of information at that time in my life, it really could have been a door into rediscovering myself and finding out the truth about myself. But because I found it through that avenue, these QAnon people, like I said, it was like not even 2 days before I figured out, oh, this is all BS. You know what I mean?
I knew it was BS whenever it started.
And it made me look away from it.
It wasn't that. It was that I was part of this community of friends, and they all fell for it. And these were my besties. And they went from being rational, intelligent, evidence-based people to being these googly-eyed followers of someone they didn't even know who it was.
Yep.
And then when you find out who it is, which is basically, so it's a kind of a complicated story because it was originally being posted on 4chan, and they have a way of being able to tell if it's the same IP.
Trip code.
Yeah, trip code, to being able to tell if it's the same person. And it changed one day. And one of the big guy that ran the guy that ran the board that Q was posting on publicly went, this isn't Q anymore. I don't know what happened to him, but it's not the same code. And then this other guy who is behind 8chan, Ron Watkins, basically posted, don't listen to that, it's still Q. And it turns out, well, guess who Q is? It's that Ron Watkins guy. He's the guy behind Q.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's been posting all the stuff.
He posted some of it, but the original PSYOP.
It didn't start with him. That's the thing. Did not start with Ron Watkins, but that's
Q. Let me say this.
Sorry.
Okay. The original PSYOP came from the Q division of the NSA.
So before it changed the servers, you mean?
Yes. The original people in charge of it were the Q division at the NSA. And that document I sent you that was links, two of them talk about it. So it started off, it was the Q division at the NSA, and they are considered to be like the internal police of the NSA.
That's interesting.
And they were assigned to redirect the truther movement. And they were wildly successful at that. And because Trump was president when it actually started, their second goal was to make him look good, because most of us with a brain in our head realize he's not who he's presenting himself as.
Mhm.
I mean, I'll be honest, I look at him and my psi abilities kick in, and I see Mussolini laid over his face. I have since the 1980s. This is all I see him as, is Mussolini. So yeah, fascist, but not Hitler. And I have never supported him because of that.
Yeah, I never did either. And you know, there's a lot of people in the community obviously who are real big fans of the guy and think that he is gonna, you know, that he's the answer to everything. And
They think he's the Messiah, and in private they'll tell you that he's the Messiah come back, that he's the second coming of Jesus. Well, you know,
that is wild.
I have talked about that I have a tutor who I'm related to because on the bloodline side. And this young man, he's in his 30s, was at the meeting where Trump took a knee and took a blood vow of loyalty to the old royals. And part of what he agreed to do was to become the beast from the book of Revelations for their end of world program. Now, I know people are not going to believe me. If I had not known this man for 15 years, I would probably not believe it either. But he was in the room when it happened. And I've known him long enough to know he doesn't lie. So, you know, people who think he's God's gift are in for a very rude awakening very, very, very soon.
Yeah, I hope that the Elon tweeting about the Epstein connections during when the FBI director was trying to sweep them under the rug on Joe Rogan. Like I'm not connected with these people anymore, but I hope at least some of them kind of were jarred by that, because that should be a moment of reckoning for a lot of people. I'm not saying it will be, but it should be.
The disclosure movement is full of these people. So I still deal with people on a daily basis who think Trump is the Messiah. They tell me that I should have been red-pilled, but instead I was black-pilled. They're really very vulgar about it in private.
Yeah, you're not black pilled, Penny. You're truth pilled. Like actual truth, not the fake truth.
There are folks who do remote viewing for a living. I'm not going to name names because this was told me in private. But one of them in particular told me that he follows my channel on Odyssey because my overview, my big picture, matches what he has been finding with his remote viewing. So to me, that was external validation that I really am tapping into with my memories and my bloodline training that I've had the last 15 years. That between them, I really am tapping into what's really going on. You know, you get told you're crazy long enough, you start to doubt yourself. So every so often somebody will tell me something, like Doris, when she verified the both of us as having actually been at Montauk, that she had files on both of us. That mattered.
By the way, for the audience, this is Doris Neely. She was the archivist.
Archivist.
That basically when the CIA went digital, she digitized a lot of the files, and she's said that she has seen my files and Penny's files.
Mhm.
And you did a whole show about on your files with her, and you learned about the flies on Mars and stuff like that.
We did
files.
3 shows on when I was on Global Enlightenment Radio Network. We did 3 shows, and the first one, she wouldn't hold her mic where you could hear her. The second one, we talked about her background, and it was funny because she and Daryl never talked. So they had all this stuff they talked about on my show that they should have been talking about at home and didn't. The third show we went through, because she still has an NDA signed, we went through that. I talked about what I remembered, and she told me if it was in the file or not. And this was an attempt to keep her out of jail. I mean, the lady's in her late 80s. I hope they wouldn't put her in jail. But at the same time, you never know. She is mentally all there, so it's not like she's in dementia.
Yeah, she's like, I always tell people, she reminds me of kind of like the Oracle from the Matrix.
Yeah.
And she's the exact kind of cookie lady that, like, I just imagine if I ever visited her home, she'd be like, "Oh, I have cookies for you," or something like that. Very nice lady. But yeah, and you can look her up. You can Google her. She's verified that she did work for the CIA as an archivist.
Yeah.
She got fired by them for, surprisingly enough, they say it was because she was basically divulging information that she shouldn't be divulging, that she was talking, essentially, is why they fired her. She actually sued them because she said it was because of racism, because she's a black woman. So, yeah, that you can actually find
she
information.
Not only sued them, but she won.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that she won. Okay.
She won. Well,
that's the information that I found from
under
Google.
President Reagan. She won. That's how she bought that house in Washington, D.C. that burned down the day I had surgery.
Which, by the way, this was after I found out that my files were there, and that we found out that she actually had physical copies of MK Ultra files, and it's kind of SSP. I don't know, like MK Ultra, I feel like is watering it down. She had very, very sensitive files, and her house got burned down. So
yeah,
that's all stuff that actually happened.
And I found out 2 years after my surgery, my primary physician says, "Oh, by the way, you had a heart attack." And I go, "What?" She said, "Yeah, I was reading through your surgery reports, and you had a heart attack." And so apparently I was supposed to die while I was in surgery.
Weird.
So
they're weird. That's scary. It's not weird. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. I would name the hospital system, but that would just get me in more trouble. I'll tell you off air.
Yeah.
But yeah, the surgeon involved has since retired.
So I think the one thing too here with this Q stuff, to get back to Q, the thing that really for me, and I felt like for the people who are following it, which I'm really surprised there are people still following it, but there are.
Oh God, there are, yes.
Is how do you continue to follow it after they have all these posts that turn out to be not true? I mean, I looked at the Q page, and the first one is that Hillary Clinton's going to be elected. Well, but she's never been arrested.
Yeah.
So what's going on with that?
Well, most people tend. The thing is that human beings tend to have an optimism bias. What that means is how it manifests in your self-image is most people tend to see themselves as better looking, smarter, more intelligent than other people. And when it comes to events like QAnon or like, psychic predictions. Like there are fake psychics out there, right? That make
There are
fake
lots of fake psychics out
yeah,
there.
and people count the hits and they forget the misses every time. This is like a basic thing about how the human mind works. People tend to have that optimism bias, and so they count the hits and they explain away or ignore the misses. That's literally it.
Mhm.
It's just like when you have a fake psychic and and they get some things right, but then everybody forgets about the shit that they get wrong.
Well, there are some good psychics out there. I want to make that clear. I have a real problem with the people in our community who have no personal memories. They paid a psychic and they're telling what the psychic said.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have a real problem with those folks.
But that doesn't make it true.
I'm one of those that I have flashbacks at night and I wake up the neighbors screaming. My memories are very real. They're very nightmarish. They're the worst ones are from when I was in mind fracture. Obviously, I had flashbacks of those even before the memories were activated. And yeah, mine were activated by NSA agents. And it was just really, really, really a hard time. Afterwards, I got this memory dump and it was all in German, a German dialect. So I can't even go translate what I hear because it's not the same. It's not proper High German. And so I had to spend a long time figuring out what I was remembering, where it would make any kind of sense to anybody. And about the time I was figuring it out, I started getting shot. Now, the agent who had activated me had sent me this cryptic message that he was dying. So I went to see him, see how bad he was, say my goodbyes, all that stuff. And it was when I came back the second time that I started being shot at, and they started shooting Lou too. I mean, you guys have met Lou. He's a really sweet man. He was in Vietnam. He worked for DOD, so he can't be considered. He did 18 months in Nam, but he's not considered a veteran because he worked for DOD instead of the actual military. But he has spent the rest of his life since then trying to make up for what he did there. And he's been really, really good to me. And when I got shot the third time, we had a talk about how Bill Cooper had said that if you know they're going to kill you, to hide in the spotlight. So that's what I was doing. I also felt that if I told everything I could remember in as coherent a manner as people could understand, that there would be no reason to kill me because it would all already be out. That worked for a little while. I'm being shot again. I'm being poisoned. I was poisoned in October and January. I've spent most of this past year recovering from the 2 poisonings. Funny, I got one of the folks on my Facebook wall who's a reader sent me a message last night saying that I was being microwaved from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. every night. That's kind of consistent with the red face. I have lupus. This is a lupus rash. This is not embarrassment or sunburn. It's a lupus rash. And it means that the next 4 or 5 days I'm going to be sick.
Sorry to hear that.
And I'm trying to write my presentation for a conference that's, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, give or take a couple of days. And I've only got 10 panels of my PowerPoint written. Yeah, I know what I'm going to say. I just haven't written it yet. And I deal every effing day with people that are still following Q.
I think, yeah. Well, apparently we are too. We got people in the audience. People can just go to this website here if you want, because I could share it. We could go through all the Q posts if you really want. I don't know, but I don't know.
I can give you the links that talk about.
But basically, there's just you can go and see the posts and see that there said stuff was going to happen that never did.
Yeah.
So that should be everybody's clue to maybe not just take it as the gospel, right? Like, it should be obvious, you would think, but that's just me.
I'm looking for which link it was that talked about.
And then you get people who are like, "Oh, it happened in an alternate timeline or another dimension," and it's like the same bullshit that we've all heard before.
The goalposts just get moved.
Yeah,
they always just get moved. Like,
they want to make it where they're right, no matter how much evidence says they're wrong.
Yeah, it's the whole like, oh, everybody's right. I reject your reality and substitute my own. Like, I can't stand that shit. I really can't.
Yeah, they understand, they think. Okay, they think they understand timelines. They don't. Timelines are sentient beings with their own ideas of what they want to do with their lives. And when you create what you think is an alternate timeline, all you've done is split this one. And the timeline itself gets mad about being split and will work it back together. So you never make a permanent split. Now, when these splits come back together, that's when you get Mandela effects.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And what they did with Montauk and all of its subgroups, the one in New Orleans, the one in Illinois, the one in I believe it's in New Mexico, and there's probably a dozen others. What they did was they went back in time and they tried to make the CIA more powerful in this time, and to a certain extent it worked. But the timeline itself will heal that and bring us back to where it wants to be. Or actually, she. The timeline we live in is a she. Yeah, that's a scary thought, huh?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about this.
But what Montauk actually did was created bubbles. And there are people still stuck in those bubbles, and those bubbles are actually outside of time. They're interdimensional bubbles. And
yeah, of course, Montauk was one of those places, but it's not the only one.
Oh no, there's at least a dozen that are run by the Department of Energy, and then there are others that are run by other countries. So the United States is not the only one with this technology.
We have a Montauk survivor in the chat bringing up the New Orleans connection, which, according to John Lipberg and a few other people, that's where the Montauk project has been moved to. It's still active. It's just not being operated out of Montauk Point anymore. There's a military base underneath New Orleans. So, and yeah, I'm actually probably going to have this person. This is Erin Elizabeth. She's going to be on the show in the near future to talk about Montauk.
Okay. I know there's one in Indiana. I know there's one in Illinois, Chicago area.
Mhm.
Chicago also has a nuclear accelerator thing similar to CERN, nuclear particle accelerator, in the Chicago area. There's one in Japan. Japan also has a neutrino detector array similar to the one in Antarctica that Eric Hecker talks about. This technology is all over the world. It's no longer just American. And people tell me, well, that isn't real. Yes, it is. Just because you've lived in a bubble with cars and electricity and gasoline doesn't mean that that's all there is. You know, look at how much telephone technology has developed in your lifetime. You're in your 40s, right?
40.
I'm gonna be 70 in October. So I'm looking at when I was little, we had party lines, and my grandmother's phone had a crank. This is how far we've come. The internet is basically just a huge effing party line.
Mm-hmm.
And these concepts just keep going. You know, your IP address now used to be your phone number. Your phone number gave where you lived because it was an area would have this prefix. And your phone number would direct you exactly to your house. So yeah, the more things change, the more they actually stay the same because your IP address is based on your physical location.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting that you bring that up because we just finished watching the HBO documentary, and there's a part in there where the son, Ron, he sort of plants a red herring by saying that he traced the Q's IP to be Steve Bannon, but that was a complete red herring, false flag to sort of throw them off their trail.
Now I can see Steve Bannon putting his fingers in the pot.
Yeah, he's definitely involved. I
can see him doing that. However, he's not the person at the top. The person at the top that started it was the Q people at the NSA branch at Fort Meade, Maryland. And they are the internal police who make sure that the culture is maintained.
Have you ever heard of the Army of Northern Virginia?
I have heard of them. I don't know who they are. Hearing the name is not knowing them.
Essentially, Paul Valley, in an interview, stated that Trump doesn't really trust the CIA or the intelligence agencies of the FBI, basically. And instead he goes, he doesn't trust the FBI or the CIA as his intelligence, and he goes to this group called the Army of Northern Virginia, which is made up of former intelligence officers, and it seems connected. Obviously, it's connected to like Polly Valley.
I don't know that name, Polly Valley.
He wrote the book Mind War with none other than Michael Aquino. And Paul E. Valley went on the news when the first Trump term was, or when the first election was happening, where Trump was in the lead to become the Republican candidate. And he went on the news and he was like, basically like, Trump is the best candidate. QAnon is real. But this is the guy who literally wrote the book about psychological operations with Michael Aquino. So that's pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, and I also who was it that tweeted that if you knew the truth about Q, you'd find out that the people who posted are pedophiles. Who said that?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I can't remember.
I think it was they basically had a Twitter page open, and I think it was a former employee who used to work for them that they fired, but they still had access to the Twitter account, so they spilled a bunch of tea. But they basically did say also that the whole Q thing's not real. Also,
yeah, and can
from the HN account on Twitter.
Yeah, and can we? I just want to say something about Jim. I just want to talk shit about Jim Watkins for a little bit. That guy he makes my fucking skin crawl. If you watch the documentary, and the weird thing is, he looks so much like Michael Aquino. Like, they have to be related somehow. But that guy makes my freaking skin crawl.
And him being well versed in the QAnon lore and everything about it, he weirdly enough wore pizza socks to his hearing where they did like a defamation hearing. And this lines up with the fact that he also got there's breadcrumbs that lead him back to literally CP websites, like child abuse websites that were registered under his domain.
Yep.
They say now that there's nothing there on the websites when you go to them, but I don't believe that. I believe that they're just scrubbed by the internet. And I do believe that he was a part of that operation in Southeast Asia where they're doing snuff films and stuff like that. And I also remember Michael Aquino being involved in that. I know he was involved in that. So, yeah, I just think
there have been
really, really dark stuff, whether it's on an SSP level or a literal surface level where he literally understands everything. That guy is a creep.
Yep. And
Michael Aquino was involved in doing mind fracture on the West Coast for the SSP. Now, the person who talks about him the most, there is absolutely no evidence that he ever actually met him. I used to be on his show once in a while, and as soon as I would go off air, he would spend the next 30 minutes basically ripping me a new one. So I stopped going on his show. And another friend who is from Pakistan and is a Freemason had been contributing to that person and finally heard what was coming out of this guy's mouth and paid a private investigator and found out that everything that this man said was actually fraudulent. So it's been wild trying to figure out who in the community is real and who isn't. Who in the community is just a mouthpiece for Q, and who is actually giving their own memories, who's just recycling what a psychic told them. And I've been trying desperately to weed out the clowns and figure out who were real and who weren't. And I've made a public apology for having included people that were fraudulent. And yeah, that's Lou behind me. He's decided to not wear a shirt today.
I don't think we even saw him because of your background.
Yeah.
So.
It's 92 degrees Fahrenheit.
It's warm here. Yeah.
So yeah, it's summer. Come on. It's legal for dudes to run around topless.
Lucky us.
Yeah, lucky you. Yes, I don't.
Well, we got a new beach here in Portland.
How would I? So. I would love to read, if you don't mind, but just a recent post of somebody in the community. I'm not going to name who it is because I don't like just like starting crap with people. It's not me, but it was posted June 26th. It's this picture of Trump. It says nothing can stop what's coming, and I just want to point out how delusional this is. Trump orders Congress to pass final bill causing widespread panic and massive arrests before the 4th of July. Trump is not being investigated. He has the authority. President Trump publicly ordered Congress to issue the Great Big Beautiful Act before the 24th Independence Day, June 25th at 5:07 p.m. No more delays, no more bargaining, blah, 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 blah. This is legal warfare. The wars abroad are over. Human trafficking chains are being destroyed. The secret NATO organizations have been eliminated. CI thug assets seized. White hats secret operations destroyed the puppet regimes in Middle East, Africa, and Ukraine. The battlefield is now in Washington, D.C. The law ends the collapse of the Federal Reserve, already destroyed military. It just says all this wild.
I too can write words and put them on Facebook.
Bullshit.
That doesn't make
it's just a bunch of wild claims, and that's got about 50 people that liked it, and
those 50 people will spread that as gospel.
Yeah, and there's actually good, thankfully enough, like some comments that are. One of them being, I hope that you don't believe these posts because none of the information is true. So not everybody's brain dead.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like I said, not trying to be mean. That's why I didn't mention the person. I just totally disagree with all of that being true. It's not true. And I do think it's kind of dangerous to share it as if it is true because it obviously isn't.
People say like big if true. Well, if you're not sure it's true, why are you sharing it? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're wishful thinking. They really believe that they can change reality simply by saying it so.
You know, one thing I'm kind of
that's a big problem that I have with New Age. I do believe that there is a reality. I tend to call it consensus reality just so that they understand that we co-create this reality by our actions, not by our mental processes. And there is a reality where things are either literally true or not, and sometimes they're partially true. And they don't understand this concept of partially true. There are people that think that everything that comes out of someone's mouth has to be 100% true because they approve of that person.
That's a huge problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I can give examples. Corey Good, David Wilcock, who else? Obviously Q. Yeah, these people just say, don't listen to anybody else. Just listen to me. It's like, okay, that's a cult.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. Are we doing that? No. We're not saying to don't listen to anybody else. We're saying, hey, we have some information. Check out our information. Listen to other people too.
Actually, there are about 20 people that I have listed as disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have, because what comes out of their mouth is pure bullshit. And I'm just tired of listening to it. And I'm tired of being asked about it. Because I get the same. If they send me a video once, they send it 50 times. Okay? People talking about shit that I debunked 8 years ago. They know it doesn't agree with what I say, so they're putting it out on purpose. It's like, this person disagrees with you. What are you going to say about it? I'm like, you want to hear them? Hear them. I think they're full of crap, but hear them. Be happy. Just leave me alone. You don't want to hear what I have to say? Go listen to the other person. I don't care. I'm to that point. I don't care. If you don't want to hear what I have to say, go listen to the person you do. I'm done. I'm not going to keep fighting these people.
Yeah,
you want to listen to bullshit? Listen to bullshit.
It's very it's very it takes the steam out of your engine, it takes the wind out of your sails when you're somebody like us who really has seen some hardcore shit. Our intel isn't hypothetical. We
I'm not
have literal
channeling.
we had literal physical 3D real experiences that actually happened to us. That's what dictates the information we're sharing, not stuff we read on the internet. And that's the reason why I had to get rid
And
of certain
I
people.
don't go into trance and channel some being from another world.
Or read Breitbart articles or Q drops or whatever, and that's where you get your information, your intel.
Yeah, basically, Steve. So the whole there's a connection. Again, it's very complicated, but basically, when Gamergate started years ago, Breitbart, the news outlet that Steve.
Yeah, I know who
Bannon,
Breitbart is.
yeah, they did a lot of coverage of that, leading people to believe in a certain way, and that fed into 4chan and 8chan, which fed into QAnon. Basically, Gamergate is a very misogynist, very hateful movement. It was never about ethics in gaming journalism. That's a lie. But it just fueled this whole it just basically fueled these angry young men and led them into 4chan, which led them into these very far right, very nasty circles. 8chan is a very, very nasty place.
Yeah, I know. Do you want to know the historical of why we have so many angry young men? We have so many angry young men because women used to be property. They would transfer ownership from our father to our husband, and we had no options but to stay with them because we could not buy a house, we could not buy a car, we could not rent an apartment, we could not have utilities turned on, we could not even get a job without written permission from our male owner.
Yep.
Now, people don't understand that today because this changed by Supreme Court decisions in the 1980s. What the Supreme Court giveth, the Supreme Court can taketh away. And you have a strong movement among young men to do exactly that, because once we were no longer property, we chose who our partner would be.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And a lot of these young men are without partners because they want to live in their mother's basement and play games all day.
Yeah, they want, like, there's these freaking incels who are like, I want a state assigned girlfriend and stuff like that. Like, it's totally absurd.
It used to be that way. A woman could not survive without a man. So all of these hateful, nasty, obnoxious guys would have some poor girl trapped for the rest of her life. And they ended up beating them mercilessly. Now, at the same time, there was a crew of men in a community that if a man did not support his wife and kids, or if he beat her too often, they would show up at his door and beat the crap out of him the first time. The second time, they would beat him a little harder. The third time, he would disappear.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of
This was the mechanism to make sure society stayed on track, because you can't have trapped women that are being killed.
Yeah.
Now, you go into other parts of the world and they still have that system. That is what Sharia is. Women are property and men enforce the rules, both on women and each other. Now, that's what these angry young men want back.
Yeah, I got into an argument with somebody about this on Facebook just the other day. that very same thing.
And I was property until into my 30s. And I can tell you the kinds of abuses it causes. When I was pregnant with my last child, the one that's intersex, 1984. So I can give you the date because birthday was February 11th, 1984. I came in to the doctor's office for a checkup. My blood pressure was 250 over 150, and I had been seeing white flashes of light for 3 days. That's stroke signs. The doctors wanted to do an induction, make me have the baby 5 weeks early. My husband said no. To their credit, the doctors locked him inside a room and left him there until he agreed for my medical procedure.
Oh, wow.
But if they had not, I would be dead today.
Well, we're very glad that you're not, Penny.
So I ended up having an emergency C-section that he didn't have to sign for because I was already in their care. And my youngest was born 5 weeks early. And thankfully, he was 8 pounds, 2 ounces and did really well. But my life was in this man's hands, and he said no. This is the kind of bullshit that went on under the old system. You know, the surgery I had on my neck, it was because he had used a broom handle on me. He broke my neck in 1977, and I had to stay with him because I couldn't make a living without him. I will not go back under that old system.
Yep.
And the angry young men out there can be mad at me all they want. And I will advise young women that if we go back to that, do not get married.
Yeah, it's what they call an extinction burst. You probably know what that is, Penny, right?
I don't know the term.
Basically, whenever a social movement whenever there's like change in society, the people who are opposed to that get really, really angry, and they do everything they can to fight against that change because they know that their ideology, their way of thinking is dying out. So they will fight tooth and nail to go back to the way it was before.
These guys are fighting tooth and nail because they can't compete. And mostly it's due to their own decisions.
Yep.
I've seen men that were unattractive that still had a gorgeous wife who adored them. And it's absolutely about attitude and behavior and taking care of yourself and doing what needs to be done. It has nothing to do with the so-called Chad appearance. It has everything to do with not blaming everybody else and becoming the kind of person that someone's going to want to be with.
Yep.
And you don't have to be perfect. I think that they've got this idea they have to meet this standard, and in the meantime, they're losing everything about themselves that's attractive, and they're just conforming to this.
And you know what I don't think helps is men. There's a male loneliness epidemic, and the boys aren't getting together anymore. You know, they're doing everything online. Their social networking is literally, that used to be something people had to do in real life for a reason.
Yeah.
And now you don't have to, and it's making men lonely and miserable and nobodies. Like, if you got friends and you go out and do stuff and you have hobbies and a job that's interesting or something that you're interested in that you work hard towards or whatever, chances are you're going to be able to find a female companion. But if you have nothing going for you, then you're not gonna. And
friends make a big difference too, because they're
wingmen, and just being
real
social.
world friends matter. And that's part of why I have trouble maintaining a positive attitude. Is my neighbors think I'm crazy because I see the big picture and they don't. And even if I don't talk about SSP, I see the big picture and they don't. And it's yes, I'm a domestic violence survivor. My father beat me. My mother beat me. My first husband beat me. My second husband was a narcissist who gaslit me. And that was an improvement over being physically beaten. Lou has not done either. When I became disabled, he took over the chores I could no longer do. When I had surgery, he literally got in the shower with me, and I was on the shower seat, and he literally bathed me like a child. He has taken care of me when I
That's
didn't.
real love right there.
Yeah, he has been absolutely wonderful, and I could not ask for better. So,
Me too.
yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm glad you guys got each other. But, you know, I don't understand a lot of what happens in the world today. I don't understand what the attraction to Q was. I've been told by people who still think it's wonderful that it made people start researching. The trouble is the directions it led straight to slander and fraud and nonsense.
Yeah, and the thing is that, and they point this out in the documentary. These Q drops, they ask a lot of leading questions. That's something straight out of Mind War. You ask somebody a leading question, and you let them come to the conclusion that you want them to come to. It's a form of manipulation.
Yeah, I highly recommend people read Mind War. It's a very short book. It's not long. It's free. It's on the internet. You look it up, you find it pretty much right away. And
I haven't read that one, so I'll look for it.
And it basically kind of helps people understand the mentality behind this. And yeah, I guess it's just something people don't think about enough. The fact that like most wars are won with ideas, not physical violence.
That's the whole reason why
No.
became so invested in this idea of mind control. He says that it's a bloodless way to win a war, which is supposedly more ethical, which is absolutely absurd.
It's not so much ideas as manipulation. That video that you showed at the beginning, that was manipulation. That was emotional and psychological manipulation. And I haven't read Mind Wars, but I have read Propaganda by Edward Bernays. And he was the founder of the entire category. And most people are very easily led, and you're not even giving them ideas. You're just asking questions and leading them in a circle, finding out what they already value and making them think these other things fit with their values.
That's why I don't like sales.
By the time they realize what's gone on, they psychologically can't admit they were wrong.
That's a very, very
sunk
good
cost
explanation.
fallacy. Like you've sunk so much into this thing that
Yeah.
you admit that it was all BS and that you wasted your time. So you double down harder.
Well, I've been in several communities because I was curious about their initial stuff. And I got into it and realized it was BS and left. I've had other people try to drag me back. Well, we miss you, you know, and I'm like, it was bullshit. You know, the twin flame community is like that.
I've never dived into that. I'm not sure what that's all about, but I'll have to do a deep dive.
It starts with a religious doctrine that is actually Jewish, and it goes to the point where that they tell people, if that's your twin flame, break up their marriage so they can be with you. That's abuse. It teaches them to be stalkers. It teaches them to break up marriages. It teaches them to hound someone. And that's wrong.
I can say that from personal experience that it's a damaging mentality.
Yeah, it
and
is.
they kind of try to give you that idea at Montauk that the person that you're with was like your person or something, with your trauma twin.
Yeah.
Which person that you'd use to motivate you to get you to do stuff. But I mean, I loved a lot of people during the Montauk project. They would put me with different women, and I remember many lives. And I just think that honestly, the person that you should be with is the person that's best for you in that moment. And there isn't some magical person out there. It's the person that aligns with the way you want to live your life, and somebody that you know is going to care about you, and somebody that wants the same things as you. It's that's what it really is. And if you go after just like a person, like if I were to do that, if I were to go after my trauma twin, that would be unfair to her and unfair to me. In fact, I feel like it kind of has been. It's a touchy subject, but
highlight that comment from James.
The agent that activated my memories was my trauma twin from Langley. They deliberately chose him to do it for that reason, because they knew I would instinctively trust him. Pyramidal Ponzi schemes. Yeah, you give your energy away to somebody above you, and you don't even know who that person is.
There seem to be a lot of people in the community that are very into pyramid schemes and scams.
Yeah, that was actually, a certain person who I used to have on the show a lot of the times, who shall not be named, wanted me to get into like pyramid schemes stuff and sponsors pyramid schemes on my channel. And it's just like, welcome to Disclosure Now, where we're going to show the truth about humanity and wake humanity up. But first, let us clue you in on this pyramid scheme.
Let me make you part of my downline.
Like, oh my God, dude. Yeah, I can't be a part of that kind of stuff.
Yep. We should go on that sometime. I mean, it's not really kind of related, but it kind of is. So we should do a show on that sometime.
We're just against financial literacy and being free from unplugged from the system, and we're the ones who are really brain.
Yeah, there are more people in the community that are trying to make money off of everyone else than there are people who are trying to actually disclose the truth. Yep. And that's I've taken up describing disclosure as a 9-ring circus, and the Ponzi schemes are one of the rings.
Yep, that's the thing. Yeah, I just, it's hard to wrap your mind around, really.
Q was another one of the rings, because it's still ongoing, and if you disclose something that disagrees with Q, you're anathema. And I talk about what I know. Now, as a navigator, I was plugged into the ship's computer, the quantum computer that had all the records for that culture. So I have that data somewhere in the back of my mind. I can't access all of it, but it helps me get the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is what I keep trying to share. And every time I head that direction, somebody cuts me off. And I'm not even sure that they're doing it consciously. It's, I get to a certain point and the eyes glaze over and they redirect me. And that's part of why I had my own channel. except I have this psychological thing. I hate looking at myself in the monitor.
I think a lot of people feel that way.
Um,
I always hate the way my voice sounds when I hear myself talk.
to me, you sound fine. You look fine.
Thank you.
So does Art. My thing is, I'm taken at night. I'm used for 20, 40, 60 years. I'm brought back. The whole time I'm gone, I'm 25. Yes, dear, we can see you. Then I wake up in the morning and I'm 69. And I have a lupus rash.
Gosh, that must be.
And I have gray hair, and I'm overweight, and I have mobility issues, and it's like, where the hell did they just keep me?
Wow.
I can relate to that. A lot of the times I'm in the shower and I'm like, why are my muscles so small? Oh, yeah. Because if I'm in the programs and I'm doing super soldier stuff, I'm usually about a foot taller, maybe more, and
You're already tall.
Yeah, no, I'll be even taller though sometimes. Like, they put you. They've also done the thing where they'll put you in giant bodies and everything.
I've been
literal giant bodies. They've done that.
I've heard about that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
They tend to make me like I was before I had kids, which is thin but muscular. And they keep me at about 25. They make my hair different colors. It's been flaming red. It's been a medium brown, which is what it was here on Earth.
I have memories of being an Asian man on some like really futuristic planet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then they've changed the technology, because when I was first brought into these programs, the clone had to be within a certain genetic.
Well, I'll give you an example. Like Daryl James talks about how they do the 20 years because after that you could go crazy, and so
no, the clone pushes you out.
Yeah, but us Montauk people were trained to be able to go longer. We could do whole lives, and I don't know how that all worked, but it was sometimes how we would infiltrate a place is we would literally kidnap a mother, take out the fetus, and then put basically one of us in the womb and have them be born there, and have them have monarch programming where they just automatically do what they got to do, not realizing that they're in a time project, and then once they're done, they get extracted by an extraction team, which they usually weren't very happy about when that happened.
I don't blame them.
But yeah, that's how that works.
Lately, I've been being contacted by people who have told me that their alter in space told them that they had to talk to me. So apparently, the various programs are aware of me, right down to the common people on ships.
I'm fairly certain that they watch our shows and stuff. Yeah.
I think that's almost intimidating.
It is.
I still have alters out there working.
I've had alters tell me, and who knows how honest they're being, but they're like, you need to stop acting like the work you're doing isn't important. It was it was my Angua alter. He told me, he's like, you need to stop acting like, if I know who you are, like, that's crazy. You need to realize how much of an impact you're making. Like, I know who you are. And I was like, oh, wow. And it's kind of a big responsibility. But yeah, apparently there are people talking about what we're doing off Earth, off world.
One of the things that made me realize that I was more than just someone talking to a camera was when John Warner IV contacted me. His father had been Secretary of Defense and the senator from Virginia. And when he came to me, he said, well, I went to visit Pop's old friends at the Pentagon, and I was having these conversations, and I would ask them who they were most worried about in the disclosure movement. He says, the two top names were you, meaning me, and Eric Hecker.
Oh wow, that makes sense because he's got straight facts to back up his testimony.
He's got photos. He came home with the manuals on the machinery used.
Yeah.
Remember, he paid for Lou and I to come to his house for a week. We went through his box of documents. He has manuals on those machines. He was really there. Anybody who thinks that he's making this up is out of their mind. He has the most documentation for his entire story of anyone I have ever seen.
Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Really appreciate it.
Well, give me the link to the YouTube, and I will put the links about the information I found into the chat so people can look up the documentation so they know we're not just pulling this out of our ass.
Do you have you should be able to pull up the comments on the side of your screen and just put it there.
Oh, it'll go there?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I don't use StreamYard, so I
Yeah,
don't.
it's all right. But
Okay.
if you have any problems, we can do the other way, but that should be easier.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to start with things Q got right. Because that's kind of scary, huh?
Yeah.
That Q got something right.
Well, there are some things that was the only reason. That's the only, that's what people were always latching onto, is the fact that sometimes he was right.
Oh, I have to.
Yeah, definitely watch it. It's very, very interesting. Starts off a little slow, but by like the third episode, you're hooked in. It's very good documentary.
And the characters behind 8chan and the whole thing, it's honestly a really fascinating story.
Yeah.
It won't let me. It says I have to log back in. So okay,
Right.
I'll just put it in whenever we're done.
Okay.
So yeah, I came up with this whole document that was links to, some of it was links to where Q's things had been archived. Some of it was articles about it being the NSA. And then I did a section that was things Q got right. So some of the things that they got right was about Podesta, and that the Steele dossier was fake, and that Mrs. Clinton was involved with Russian sales of uranium, and everything that was related to her email server has been scrubbed from the internet. But I have a thing with Guccifer about it. And yeah, I have the section on who is Q. So too bad they don't let me just upload the file.
You might be able to hit the present button down there. Slides and PDFs.
Oh, present. Oh, slides and PDFs. It's not a PDF, but Add a file. Google Slides, PowerPoint, and PDF, and it's not. It's a text file. So okay. Next time I'll make it a slide.
Okay.
But yeah, it's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, it can be confusing sometimes. I wish this StreamYard was a little easier to use sometimes, but it is what it is.
Let me see if it'll save as a PDF. Nope, won't let me save it as a PDF. Software can be a pain in the butt. Anyway, so what? Okay, going to watch the Q documentary when this is over. That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, is there anything else you want to say about the whole Q thing before we wrap things up here?
The Q thing told enough truth that people thought it was all true.
Yeah.
But I would give it like 20% truth and 80% bullshit. And most of the bullshit was just slander. It was leading you to believe things about people without evidence. Now, some of those things that people believed without evidence were actually true, but without evidence, you don't know that. So I'm not going to say that all of those people were innocent, but there's no actual proof that they're not.
Yeah, and I basically just tell people, like, with this Q thing, like, follow the rabbit hole of the people involved, the 8chan guys, got to be a Poly Valet.
Yeah, they're so shady, like both father and son.
And just the people that are behind the scenes that seem to be kind of pulling the strings on this thing are not the most trustworthy people, and they're definitely not Q-level military.
Yeah, the guy Ron, the son, like, if you watch the documentary, like, now, I don't place a lot of importance on body language analysis. It's kind of a pseudoscience, but if you watch this documentary, first of all, he's constantly just blinking in a very weird way like this. And basically when his mouth is moving, he's lying. And he's constantly very shady.
That would be a lot of people.
Yeah. They're just total weirdos.
I like that phrase. If his mouth's moving, he's lying.
There's a pop song pop song that has it.
That's almost every politician in the world.
Yep.
But yeah, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, this is great. I haven't been on the show for a while either, and this is good. I had a good time.
Yeah, for people who want to find Penny, she's on Odyssey, Knockoff and Pilot, and Rumble as well. There's old stuff on YouTube, but the censorship,
They started with telling me that our recording of the Montauk Roundtable was inciting violence. And then about once every 3 months, they delete a video. It's not often enough for them to take down the whole channel, but it's often enough for me to know I'm in trouble. And the last time I tried to upload something, they told me no. So I can still respond to comments, but I can't post. So there's no point in it. And the Rumble, at the moment, I've been doing an archive of what was already on the YouTube, and my new work is at Odyssey. It's jumbled between some of the archival stuff and the new work. On Rumble, I went through and definitely did, chronological order of when I did the interviews, and I need to get back into them, uploading them. But I'm at the $100 a month mark, and the people on my Patreon are paying for it. I have to constantly monitor how much of their memory I'm using, because the next level is $500 a month, and I can't pay that. So people who think that because I have a show that I'm wealthy,
That's not the reality.
the reality is, if the producer was not paying for my trip, I would not be going to Florida in 2 weeks. So yeah, it's and it will probably be the last one because my health has been so bad. The constantly going back and forth between being 25 and being this age and disabled is wearing on me, and there's a Project Oblivion has been targeting me for at least 3 years, and if you haven't followed Olivia James's work, you should. She's one of the better ones out there.
She's been on our show.
Yeah, she's good people, personal friend of mine. Yeah, she's been on my show several times. So yeah, her work on Substack about Project Oblivion is some of the best out there.
About what?
About Project Oblivion.
Oh yeah. I gotta read that.
Now, I do have a Substack, but it's primarily a different kind of disclosure. My tutor that I talk about gave me a document dump, and he asked, after 15 years of teaching me, he asked me to upload them to my Substack. So that's what I'm doing. I know that the people who he got them from believe they're real. And I've been reading them as I put them up, and they have been really disturbing to me. And I generally put them up and don't allow comments because they're not my work, and I can't answer questions about them because they're not my work. And so I'm just putting them out there. They're representing themselves as the old royals, and these are legal documents. So I think people really need to read them.
Link all that stuff in the comments if you can, Penny, after this.
Okay. They're more big picture stuff, real world. They're not SSP oriented at all. But if this is the direction the world goes, it's somewhat frightening to me. So yeah.
Well, I can only imagine if you're sharing it, it's important information. People definitely should check that out.
People should know about it, whether they believe it or not. They should know it's out there.
That's a good way of looking at it. Well, I'm gonna wrap up the show. Thanks so much for being here with us, Penny. We will talk soon.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Penny. Have a good rest of your night.
Thanks.
Bye.